All right. Um, my name is Boris. I'm a government contracting consultant. I help businesses win government contracts. And in this video, we're going to talk about GSA, more specifically GSA eligibility, because this is the most misunderstood part of the whole GSA. Because when people hear about GSA, most people think that, oh, I can just go apply. Everybody's eligible, and every business should have a chance to be part of a GSA program. Yes, you're right. Every business may need a chance to get approved of a GSA program. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The government has some key requirement in order for a business to be approved to be part of a GSA network as a preferred vendor. So not every business is eligible to apply for the GSA schedule program, and I will explain you all the eligibility criteria that you need to have. And this is my favorite topic about GSA when we talk about eligibility, because it's the most misunderstood part of a GSA program, at least. All right. So let's get started here. There are about, let me see the exact number. There is about 6 main requirements in order to be part of the GSA network, and I will go through each of them. I will first list them all, and then I'm going to go deep in details into each of them. In this one, I'm actually going to go deep in details into each of them, just because I feel like it's going to help a lot of people understand exactly, you know, if they qualify and what makes them qualify, and if they don't qualify, why they not qualify to be part of a GSA network program. So let's get started here. So the first number one requirement is that your business must be legally registered um, in the US. That's the first one. Remember, we're gonna come back more in details. What does that mean, right? When you say your business must be legally registered in the US, what does that mean, right? So yeah, you have to understand exactly. Does that mean you have to have an LLC? Does that mean you have to have a S corp? Does that mean we're gonna come back to that more in details? Keep watching. All right. So next year, as number two, your business must have at least 2 years in operations. What does that mean too? Does that mean that if I've been serving my own clients as a sole proprietorship, I can use that experience? Does that mean that if I had been, serving clients without a business and now I have a business, does that experience count or not? We're gonna come back to that. Okay. Number three, you must have a proven past performance history. Does that mean that if you had private sector experience as an employee, does that experience work? Does that experience count? All that stuff we're gonna talk about it as well. Number four, your business must be financial stable. Financial stable, what does that mean? Very, very vague, right? We're gonna come back and give more clarification to that. Number five, your product and services must be compliant with the trade agreement. And in my intro video about the GSA, I talked about the compliance that your product and services need to have in order to be part of the GSA network. So we're gonna be talking more in details of that here. Number six is you must offer competitive pricing to the government. What does that mean to be competitive to the government? What does that mean to give them competitive pricing? We're gonna talk about that. All right. So let's go back to our first point here. So now that I've talked about, now that I've gave you the 6 main eligibility criteria to be part of a GSA network, we're gonna go into each of them more in details, right? So now the first requirement, we're gonna go more into details. It's the business must be a legally registered US based company. So what does that mean to the GSA office and the MSA program? So what that means is, to qualify for a GSA schedule, your business must be one, registered in the United States of America. So that means that you must be registered with whatever state you're in. You have to make sure you register there and you're compliant. Oh, a little bit blurry. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so yeah, so you have to make sure that you are You have to make sure that your business is legally registered with your states, wherever you live in America. You register with the federal government through the IRS, right? You have to make sure that you are registered on SAM.gov. So, in order to be qualified to get on the GSA, you must have already a SAM.gov account and have a unique identity ID. If you've been doing government contracting for a little while, you know what I'm talking about. If you freshly new to government contracting, I would not recommend to be worried about getting on the GSA, because you need to first understand how SAMs work. You need to first understand how SAM.gov works and how you can get approved to get on SAMs.gov before you even think about getting on the GSA, because to be part of a GSA, you have to be part of SAM.gov first. So yeah, so if you're already part of SAM.gov, then that means you have a unique identity ID, and you're gonna need that as a requirement in order to get on the GSA. And then next, you need to possess a commercial and government entity code, which is also called a cage code. Once you go through the SAMs.gov registration process, you get a cage code. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need to save that so that we can use that in the GSA process. It's part of the eligibility process. Yeah, steps here. Next, you need to be structured as a corporation, LLC, sole proprietorship, or partnership, right? So any of those work in order to be eligible for the GSA network. And then if your business is in or needs any kind of special licenses, based on your area of expertise, then you will need to get those licenses. So let's say your business is in the business that your company is in the business of providing medical services, right? Then that you always pretty much comes with special licenses, right? Like licenses from the states or the federal government. So if your business is in those kind of services, then you definitely want to make sure that you have licenses and that they are active and current. So yeah, now we just talked about who are eligible. We talk about the eligibility um, um, criteria when it comes to being a legally registered business in the US. But let's talk about the exceptions, right? For businesses that are not legally registered in the US. So when you are a foreign business, you are not eligible for the GSA program, unfortunately, right? You are not. Generally, only US based companies are eligible, unless that have changed. But from my research, that hasn't changed. And but if you are a foreign company and you have a US based subsidiary, then you are registered on SAM, then you might qualify. But it's not guaranteed. You can meet all of the criteria, but that one can be a little bit difficult. But then also another exception will be if your business products do not comply with the Trade Agreement Act, the one that I just talked about. That pretty much it says that products cannot be made in countries that are not allied with the US, and highly recommend products that are made within the US. No, not always, but within the US. That's what they really highly recommend. All right, so that's it about when we talk about your the business registration eligibility. So all right, now we're gonna talk about the second main requirement to be eligible for the GSA program. Your business must have at least 2 years in operations. What does that mean? So GSA requires businesses to demonstrate stability and a track record of successes. So they want to make sure that you have been incorporated for at least 2 years. So if you were already doing activities under one LLC for years, and you left that LLC, you're starting a new LLC, that would not, you can't count that experience into the new LLC because this is not under the same company, right? So it has to be that you're applying with needs to be in operation for at least 2 years, unless you had a company change the name to a new name, then that experience that you had before you change the name counts. But if it's a freshly brand new business, you cannot use that you cannot use the last the operations that you had prior, with the old company into the new one. So you have to make sure that they really go with the date of incorporation. So that's why you have to check that the date of incorporation is what they go for. um, and you have to have that documented when you register your company with your state. Now next, you have to also make sure that you have your financial statements for the last 2 years from when you apply. So, and then you have to make sure that um, your company it's pretty much not pretty much they're trying to run away from startups, because if your company is newly established, a new startup, you're not gonna qualify for the GSA program. That's pretty much what they tell you. So unless a startup or a new freshly company can qualify, as part of those 2 year in operation, if they are only part of a merger or acquisition. Let's say a bigger company just purchased you and you have been in operation for 1 year, then that smaller company can qualify, because now they're not going to be under the bigger company that has been in business for years, right? So you're pretty much going to use the leverage of a bigger company that is acquiring you to be able to qualify. But other than that, you will not be able to qualify if your business has been in business for less than 2 years. So all right, next year, number three, we're going to talk about the past the past performance history. The GSA requires that you have proven past experience. So your company must have prior experience providing products or services similar to those listed in your GSA applications. You must submit past performance references um, from either government contracts, if you have won any, or commercial contracts if you have all the businesses that you have served, and preferably well-known businesses. But whatever experience you have in the commercial space is fine, as long as you have references. And always make sure you have the references, right? So it's not just about, oh, I helped this business do this, but then there is no way to reach out to that business to verify that you provided that service. Always provide references as well. So, all right. And how do you demonstrate that past performance? So it comes with, like I said, providing the past references, who can verify that the work was successfully completed. And also you can no, this one is pretty much optional, but also make sure that you have like a contract performance assessment reporting system, so that you can track how well your performance, how well you perform with that client. Now that's not every company has that, especially smaller companies. So that one is it's a it's kind of like optional, but if you do have that, it would be awesome. Or you can just ask like a customer feedback, and then you can find a way to document that in a way that they can see that as a score of how well you perform. But then you also um and the next, if you only have commercial clients, you can submit testimonials, invoices, and project summaries, kind of like what I was saying earlier. So yeah, and if you do not have any past performance, you're not going to qualify for GSA schedule. So yeah, and then next we're going to talk about the fourth one is the business must be financially stable. This one is a very um common questions that I get from my clients that are trying to get approved with the GSA. What does that mean to be financially stable? Well, let's see. The government, the federal government only works with financially healthy business that can fulfill the contract obligation. The reason why is because they don't want a company to win a contract and relying solely on that contract in order to remain in business, right? Then that means if you win that contract, you won't have any funds to fulfill the sale, because a lot of times you don't get paid until like 15-30 days after. So you need to be able to have funds to fulfill any needs that come right away. So they don't want you to win the contract and then now you win the contract but you can't fulfill the need, right? So you have to be able to be, stable enough to be able to start working with, on the contract that you just win. So that means financial documents that are required and they want to see is the profit and loss for the last 2 years. They want to see, and make sure it's separate. Profit and loss needs to be in one document, and then they also want to see the balance sheet showing businesses assets and liability. They need to see that. They also need to see the cash flow statements for the last 2 years. They need to see that. They also need to see your tax returns for the business for the last 2 years. Now, if you do the tax return of a business under your personal taxes, then I will just provide the whole thing, right? But normally, depending on what the structure of your business, people separate the two. But that's not really something that I want to talk too much about because I'm not an accountant. But yeah, just provide the business tax return for the last 2 years, and then there are a couple of red flags that can lead to rejection when it comes to that. So like that's why that's when we really talk about like what those financially stable means, right? So let's talk about that. So if a couple of red flags can be like negative cash flow or net losses in financial statements. If they see that, you're probably going to be rejected. They want to make sure that you're profitable already. And then high debt. The next thing is high debt and equity ratio. If they see like you have too much debt, then that just shows that your business is not stable. And if they see that you have any pending lawsuit or legal issues, then they definitely not gonna want to work with you. And then if your business is financially struggling or have any other financial obligations that can lead to a negative financial state of your business, then you're definitively not going to be approved. All right, so this is all about the financially stable requirement versus the financially stabilization of your business. So now we're going to talk about the product and services that must follow the Trade Agreement Act. So this is a compliance that the product and services of the companies that want to be part of the GSA program has to follow. So the Trade Agreement Act requires that products sold under the GSA schedule must be manufactured or transformed in the US or a TAA designated country. Like there's already a list of countries that the US approves of manufacturing the product that will be part of the GSA programs for. And then next you have to not manufacture products in countries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Like I said, can't have the product made there. Yep. Yeah, I've heard about a bad story of someone who made products in China, and that one, yeah, it did not go well. Yeah, he was trying to hide it. They found out, and yeah, he lost a lot of millions. All right, next, where can product be manufactured? So yeah, so a lot of countries are the US, Canada, Mexico, Japan. The countries that are part of the European Union, Australia, South Korea, Taiwan, and other TAA approved nations. So you will have to go check the TAA approved nations to see the full list. But then there's 3 countries that are not allowed: China, India, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. That's so far, it might move. I'm surprised India is part of non-allowed. But hey, I don't know nothing about politics, so don't ask me. All right, so let's just take an example here. So if your company sells laptops, you cannot um, list a laptop manufacturer um, 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 if your laptops are manufactured in China, you can list them on the GSA contract. So, however, if you import components from China but assemble them in the US, it might qualify. It might just component. It might, but even then, they will ask you more. But be transparent. Tell them exactly what components were imported from China, and yeah, that way they know. Don't try to hide because it's not gonna be good. Be very transparent with them. So services based business. So TSA compliance is mostly for product based businesses. Services provided do not need to worry about TA rule, but ensure that the employees work in the GSA compliant locations. GSA compliant locations. Yes, so you can research that. You mostly, no fully, but mostly means be mostly working in the states here. But there is other locations, but definitively you need to um, check that more in details if you are interested into knowing more of that. All right, so next the last requirement is the competitive pricing to the government. So as a GSA contractor, you have to provide competitive pricing to the government. So GSA expects lower pricing than you charge your commercial clients. That's just the truth. The government wants the best deal. Your pricing should be competitive in the market. It should be equal or lower than your commercial customer pricing. It must be consistent with similar business on the GSA schedule. So, but how do you actually determine competitive pricing? Yeah, because you might have your pricing, you might think it's competitive, but then GSA has a website that you can see what the competition is charging. So you can go on GSA Advantage .gov to see what the competitors are charging, and they want you to be very competitive. And then you can also go and analyze the GSA library to find industry pricing range. And then yeah, just be ready to give discounts to the government. That's just, there's other vendors out there. If you don't, you might not get approved. You have to be very, very I want to say aggressive, but very competitive, most importantly. So, but yeah, so those are the requirements when it comes to the GSA. Let me summarize here again. So you must be registered in the US with a UEI and cage code. Those come from SAM.gov. You must provide at least 2 years of financial history. Make sure this stable. Don't check the numbers because they might ask bank statements. You don't know, they may ask many other documents. So be very transparent and be truthful. Must have commercial or government past contract experience. Must submit the profit and loss balance sheets, tax returns, and cash flow statements documents. You must be TAA compliant, and then also have competitive pricing. So those are the main things that you have to know when it comes to your eligibility with the GSA program.